is The View from HAS, a comprehensive look at the programs and people that make Channel 11's picture a welcome guest in thousands upon thousands of homes across Kentucky and southern Indiana. Your host is veteran WHAS announcer Jim Walton.
The View from HAS is one that's taken us over 15 years and 2 tower sites to develop. We'd like to introduce you to some of the people and the programs who help to make that view a good one. Now, one of the shows that we have a hand in producing comes from a mighty big studio called Churchill Downs.
And Mr. Brick looks like he can't hold on as the Scoundrel has got it. And they are coming now to the top of the stretch, and the Scoundrel is the leader, with Northern Dancer whipping and driving to the outside, and Hill Rise comes right with him. So it's Northern Dancer that's got the lead, and Hill Rise, as Shoemaker says, let's go, but it's Northern Dancer that's still out there with the lead, and it's Northern Dancer out there, and Hill Rise is coming to him now, but he hasn't got him yet, and it's Northern Dancer. The Scoundrel hangs on to third, Roman Brother and Quadrangle after that, but it's the Dancer, and here comes Hill Rise whipping and driving, the little horse and the big horse, and we're coming to the wire, and it is Northern Dancer that wins it by a neck.
Here's the Kentucky Derby, just one of the dozens of races that WHAS televises each year. But here's the real expert, our sports director, Kaywood Ledford.
The Kentucky Derby is just one of the stories we report on WHAS Sports. Sport Rates at 6 o'clock each evening is as old as the station itself. And Kentuckiana viewers have learned to rely on WHAS Sports at 11:20 for the late scores and tomorrow's headlines. Charlie Maston and I make up the only 2-man, full-time sports staff in the entire area. And our reporting is supplemented by interviews and film. Each February, 10,000 track and field fans converge on Louisville's Freedom Hall to watch the stars from all over the world participate in their specialties. WHAS cameraman Ted Kohler joins the spectators in following the Olympic champions. Other Olympic performers like pretty Muriel Grossfeld take advantage of the marvelous indoor arenas in our town, like this gymnastics exhibition. 18,000-seat Freedom Hall draws the top attractions. And in Kentucky, that means basketball. The WHAS sports cameras are there to record this exciting moment, whether it's a high school championship or a national college title. And sports fans like those close ones. Hoop hysteria is almost a way of life among sports fans in Kentuckiana. We have our own national stars, too, like Bobby Nichols, present champion of golf's PGA and World's Championship tournaments. Bobby was the winner of our annual award to the Kentuckiana Sports Man of the Year. Bobby's a frequent visitor to our sports programs. He shared his thrills with us and recently took some good-natured kidding after soaring to a 90 in one of his tournament rounds.
It was just one of those days, and honest to goodness, I really tried. And I ended up with 90. I think I know it's the highest I've ever scored in a tournament, and it's kind of embarrassing to turn it in, but when I looked around and saw a few of the other scores, I felt like I wasn't by myself.
With fall comes King football. Highlights of key games involving teams in our area are highlights of WHAS television sports programs. This thrilling dash through the mud Thanksgiving won the day for Male High School over Manual, one of the oldest annual high school rivalries in existence. Each week, we show highlights from Indiana University's games and the key plays from each Saturday's football war waged by the University of Kentucky, like this game-winning toss. Local Golden Gloves competition produced heavyweight champion Cassius Clay. In Miami for his title fight, we recorded this story.
Cassius, how will you fight Sonny Liston?
Well, Kaywood, my strategy will be to move a lot of fast moving, in and out, hit and not be hit, a lot of dancing. Let me call my assistant trainer over here, Bodine, and he'll tell you. Bodine, yes. What's going about strategy? How to float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Hey, rumble, young man, rumble. Hey, that's what we're going to do. You just heard an example. He's an inspiration. That's the Cassius Clay pep. How?
Cassius has given us some interesting programs. There are many sides to this amazing young man. He can play the buffoon, but he can have his serious moments, too. His membership in the Black Muslims provokes serious discussion from Cassius Clay.
The most popular athlete on the planet Earth. I just got a telegram. Next month, I might have to go to Jakarta, someplace between China and Japan. It's a country where all of the Islamic officials of the whole world, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, the Sudan, Egypt, and Bethlehem, Jerusalem, all of these fellows are going to meet around a table, and they want me there. And
Well,
this has made me really a big fella, and then it lets the people know that I'm not in a lot of these things that's happening as far as fights and forced integration, and they look at me and say, well, this fella, you don't worry about him, he's not like that.
If it involves people, it involves WHAS Sports. Local and national, we go and we do. Reporting and interpreting the news from the exciting world of sports.
Jim, we're quite proud here at WHAS of our new staff, and we feel you'll have cause to join us in that prideful feeling when you know a little bit more about our staff. These are the men who are seen most often on Channel 11, the faces and voices of WHAS television news. Here's David Dick, the morning man at WHAS News. Dave reports the news at 1 o'clock on Midday Summary, which features the latest in local news developments on film. Fred Wishy anchors our 6:15 report, a complete and comprehensive film report on today's happenings in Kentuckiana. Fred is well known in city and county government offices, where he spends much of his day gathering news firsthand. Doug Curry checks in at 11 p.m. daily with a wrap-up of world and local news events, which includes videotape of significant national news and the latest local events on film. Doug, just another in the WHAS staff of news specialists. On the weekends, Kentuckiana residents tune in Don Schultz for the continuation of the comprehensive news coverage that has made WHAS news coverage a synonym for reliability in area homes. As with every member of the WHAS TV news staff, Don's only job is news. As I said, these are the faces and voices of WHAS News, the ones seen most frequently. Others who check in with their reports on the stories they have covered include Bob Johnson, a frequent visitor to the 6:15 news set. Bob goes where the story is to bring back first-hand reports for the Kentuckiana audience. Bud Harbsmeyer, besides shooting many of the stories that are included in our daily newsreel, frequently reports on the stories he covers with his camera. Larry Schwartz is another reporter well known to Kentuckiana who, like all WHAS newsmen, gets his facts on the scene and brings back a fresh, up-to-date report of the news as it happens. The daily newsreel is and has been a standard fixture of WHAS News since the station went on the air. It is important to remember that for the first 14 years, WHAS News produced the only TV newsreel in the market. This unmatched experience continues to show today in every comparison. From the time Ted Kohler takes the news film from the processor, and he processes about 35,000 feet of newsreel a month until it's ready to put on the projector chain, it's handled only by newsmen, professionals in the field whose only job is news. Bob Eaton and Joseph Angadi do the bulk of the news film editing, but other members of the 12-man WHAS news staff are trained and capable of editing the film when the occasion demands. This experience, training, and professionalism shows up every day in the finished product. WHAS Daily Newsreel captures the hard news with a vividness and completeness unmatched in the market. Through the years, WHAS has become synonymous with excellent news coverage. Kentuckiana residents know when they tune their television dial to Channel 11, they'll get the best, the most complete, the most comprehensive, the most accurate coverage of today's news today. This is the real test of performance, and WHAS has proven itself by consistently outstanding coverage of hard news. An added extra to WHAS television news coverage is the full complement of news specials, WHAS reports, in-depth coverage with a sharp focus on a particular community problem. There's the weekly WHAS What's Your Question program, featuring a prominent newsmaker to answer the viewers' questions. The political debates during campaigns pioneered by WHAS in Kentuckiana in 1952 and the special Eye on Frankfurt series during General Assembly sessions are just another example of news leadership. Electioneering, while a national pastime every 4 years, is a year-round occupation in Kentuckiana, and area residents take their politics seriously. WHAS News is serious about its political coverage, too, and area residents are taken by camera and live on-the-scene reports wherever political news is being made. Now, that could be the National Governors Conference in Glacier National Park, Montana in 1960 or in Cleveland, Ohio in 1964. It could be the nominating conventions in Chicago or Los Angeles in 1960 or San Francisco or Atlantic City in 1964. And the nearby state capitals in Frankfurt and Indianapolis are as familiar to our viewers as they are to our reporters. We could go on with more statistical information about the size of our stringer system, several dozen photographers scattered throughout the two-state area who shoot news film for us, about the number and description of the various pieces of technical equipment necessary to process electronic journalism, about a management committed to the very best in public service, and then backs up that commitment with a realistic budget. But the time has come for us to thank you for your time, say so long, and remind you that WHAS television news can be seen at 1 o'clock, 6:15, and 11 p.m. daily, and 3 times each weekend. Jim?
Thank you, Jay. Now meet Phyllis Knight, hostess of Small Talk and the Louisville market's outstanding female personality. Phyllis is one of America's few two-time winners of McCall's Golden Mike Award, and she has enough regional awards to paper her home. On Small Talk, Phyllis interviews actors, astronauts, ambassadors, the whole range of interesting people. And here she chats with Dr. Norman Vincent Peale.
Things, Phyllis, that I ever learned in my life, and I can remember the exact day that I learned it. I was sitting on a Lehigh Valley train years ago in the dining car, and I had a book there by Frank Laubach. Now, Frank, in my opinion, is one of the greatest saints of our time. And he said we got to learn to pray in fractional moments. In other words, take the fractional time of the day and use that for prayer. You don't just say, I'm going to take 10 minutes and go apart and have a prayer in the morning. That's good. I'm for that. But say you're in the taxi cab. Well, you've got a little time to wait between your before you get to your destination. Talk to the Lord. Suppose you're sitting in a dentist's office and the dentist isn't ready for you yet. You pray. And believe me, I would pray if I was there.
Most guests come to the studio, but once in a while we just have to have fresh air. Small Talk goes to the excitement of locking through the McAlpin Dam and seeing how a dredge moves an island. We hit the heights with a view from the top of our new TV tower. Small Talk ranges from hearing an alcoholic tell about life on Skid Row to hearing Ethel Waters sing to hearing the fantastic Carol Channing tell how the water in Boston made her hair fall out. Yes, sometimes we laugh and sometimes we cry, but always we make Small Talk a reflection of thoughts and ideas and people. It is truly a mirror of the community.
Small Talk, the feature section of WHAS TV's nightly television journal, Focus. In addition to Small Talk, our Focus strip includes Sport Rates, Weather Vane, WHAS and CBS News. In a fast-moving hour and a quarter, Focus viewers can be well informed about every major happening from Louisville to Laos. Now, earlier in the day, Midday Summary, our noon service strip, features the news and weather, plus our midday farm package with WHAS Farm Director Barney Arnold. Barney is undoubtedly the area's most popular and respected farm personality. In recognition of his outstanding coverage of the farm scene, he's won every major farm award offered in Kentucky and Indiana. Here's Barney.
Thanks, Jim. Awards don't just happen, of course. You do have to work at them a little bit, and today we want to tell you something about our work in the farm department here. We have a pretty good format, I think, and we'll give you a brief rundown on that after David Dick brings you the news. Then we come along with the weather forecast. We have a weather map. We get our information directly from the U.S. Weather Bureau at Stanford Field, and right up to the minute, too, because just before we go on the air, so it'll be just as timely as we can possibly make it. Then we do the livestock market reports. We have a few illustrations here. We give you the hog market report, the beef cattle market report, going on to the dairy cows. Those are canners and cutters, they call them. then the bulls, then our Vealer market. This is a very important one here because we have some of the best Vealer markets in this area, as you'll find any place in the United States. From that, we go to our lamb market, and, of course, Kentucky spring lamb is noted throughout the United States. We catch the egg market report, the poultry market report, and wind up with the grain market report. These will just illustrate the different things, the commodities that are of basic importance to farmers here in Kentucky and southern Indiana. Our daily features are designed to be of interest to both farm and city people alike as much as possible. We have subject matter specialists on the program, interesting people, and demonstrations such as flowers and lawns and shrubs and gardens, and as well as best buys for consumers. Speaking of interesting people, one of the most recent guests was the governor of the Farm Credit Administration in Washington, D.C., Robert B. Tuttle. Our farmers have learned that they use credit just like a tractor or any other tool on the farm. So they borrow a whole lot of money, but they pay as much of it back as they can, too.
Well, this is true. A farmer, the modern farmer, takes a businessman's view of credit.
Mm-hmm.
If he feels that he can make money by using more credit, he borrows more. This is, of course, if the lender also shares that view, you see.
We take our camera to the field with us. In fact, it's just standard equipment when we go to the country. On a recent field trip to western Kentucky, we covered a demonstration on timber management, showing our audience how to use a chainsaw in felling trees, emphasizing the safety factor in using chainsaws. These little machines can be pretty vicious if you don't use them properly, but they're very good instruments to use in the woodlands. Taking out trees which should be harvested for lumber. This is just one illustration. We could just as well have shown you a livestock show or livestock demonstration, or how to plant corn to raise 100 bushels or 150 bushels to the acre, or how to take care of a burley tobacco crop. All of these things are of vital importance to Kentuckiana farmers. The funny thing here, when this old boy felled the tree, it didn't fall just where he wanted to in spite of the wedges, and it landed up in the top of another tree. Timber! Of course, we like to perform in places where we and our TV cameras can see and be seen. Places such as the Kentucky State Fair. Here's a short bit on our last state fair. We have a $16.5 million fair plant here in Louisville, and we like to show up out there as much as possible. Of course, we have thousands and thousands of people going through the fairgrounds every day, and this is where we like to be, where the people are. We'd like to introduce our associate in the farm department, Ray Adams. Ray has been with us over a year now. He's an experienced horticulturist. Fact is, he operates his own greenhouse, but he's also a well-rounded person in his scope of knowledge. He can do a program on livestock or crops just as easily as he can do a demonstration on how to do a better job of growing house plants. Ray is a valuable man, and we certainly appreciate what he can do to add to our listening audience's pleasure. About myself, I came here in 1952, been here 13 years now at WHAS, and they've been very pleasant years. We came from Oklahoma, grew up out in what they call the shortgrass country in western Oklahoma on a wheat and cattle farm. But since we've been here in Kentuckiana, we've learned a lot about burley tobacco. Fact is, we had to learn a lot about it because this is the chief cash crop of this area. It's a real pleasure working here at WHAS TV, handling the farm detail, and working with the people that we find here. They're wonderful folks. Well, I think that'll give you just a brief rundown there on how we operate and how we try to earn those awards Jim was talking about there a while ago. Jim?
Thank you, Barney. Back in 1950, one of our first shows on the air was T-Bar V Ranch. It's still with us, and so are its two talented hosts, Cactus Tom Brooks and Randy Etcher. Here's Randy.
Thanks, Jim. Say, that number you see right there, 80,000, they tell me is the number of children my sidekick Cactus and I have talked with since the beginning of T-Bar V. As long as children have birthdays, there'll be a T-Bar V, and Monday through Friday at 9 o'clock, you can bet Cac and I will be there.
Hey, you know what?
What?
Amanda's in the hospital getting her tonsils out.
She is? Well, we better be sure and wave to her.
Libby and Stephen Paul Bieberhauser.
Again.
Yeah, that's you. How about that?
Look at, she pointed her finger.
She pointed her finger. Did she? And what about him? What's he doing?
Waving.
Who is that?
Stevie?
Yeah. Stephen is 6 years old. They live on Adrian Way.
There's me again. There's Stevie again.
And who else?
And me.
Of course, we do lots of other things on TBRV besides talking to the children. We run several cartoons, live puppet shows, and an informative Encyclopedia Britannica feature every day. In addition, former Walt Disney animator Alan Blankenbaker joins our production staff to offer special TBRV features such as this. A little toot was just a tug, just a happy harbor tug, and he came from a line of tugboats fine and brave. But it seems that little toot simply didn't give a hoot. Though he tried to be good, he just could not behave. Now, in the late afternoon, Cac and I team up again, this time to entertain the older youngsters with our cartoon buddy Popeye. It's 45 minutes of fun on Popeye's Cartoon Circus. Oh, by the way, there's another regular member of the Cartoon Circus cast, a bird named Lolita, a real bird and a real talker.
Now, calm down, Lo. You know from past experience that it'll go away.
Yes, but spooneritis is so embarrassing.
Not if you keep your mouth shut.
Have you ever known me to keep my mouth shut?
You mean mouth shut. Well, no.
People will look at me.
Huh?
People will look at me.
Well, that's what you get paid for, isn't it?
And there's Cac again. He's in charge of the mail and joke department on Popeye's Cartoon Circus.
Yeah, that's all the pictures for today, kiddies. Boy, isn't that a fine-looking bunch, aren't they? Yes, sirree. You keep those cards and letters and pictures coming in. And jokes, too. Your picture will be up here among all of them. Well, we got some good jokes today. Beverly Boswell from way up Harrisburg, Kentucky sent one in. Sent a couple in. Says, why did the chicken go halfway across the road? Don't know. She wanted to lay it on the line. and another one's a good question. If a hen and a half laid an egg and a half in a day and a half, how long would it take a rooster to hatch a hardware store sitting on a doorknob? Give up? So did the rooster.
Popeye's Cartoon Circus and TBRV Ranch, two of the reasons Channel 11 is the children's choice in Kentucky and southern Indiana. Say, before I go, there's one more show we'd better mention, since this one is a favorite of many folks, young and old, in the Louisville area. Hayloft Hoedown's the name of the show, and WHAS is the place for the action every Saturday night at 7. There's no sadness, no sorrow, no trouble I see. There will be peace in the valley for me.
But back here, let's go back in the cheaper seats, and we'll find, well, what's yours?
Have you ever heard about the new Dr. Doll?
No, tell us about the new Dr. Doll, and lean over a little before I break.
Well, you wind him up, and then he operates on batteries.
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say,
I'm gonna sing.
Saturday night when the moon is bright, we're gonna sing. Cotton mail levy, ooh, cotton mail levy, ooh. And so it goes for 30 of the fastest minutes in local television. Hayloft Hoedown, 7 p.m. Saturdays. Jim?
Thank you, Randy. Next, an HAS personality who's singularly distinguished for not winning any awards on his nightly show. I'm talking about Milton Metz, our weatherman. Somehow, weather shows never receive much attention from the critics, but if they did, you can bet that Milton would have an Emmy. Milt?
Thank you, Jim. The theory behind weather vane, which I've been doing for well over a decade, is that people are not so much interested in seeing on our map such technical things as locations of isobars and isotherms, but rather the information as to what the weather's going to be tomorrow. For instance, a mother wants to know how to dress her child for school. She wants to know whether it's going to rain or not. A businessman wants to know whether to wear a warm overcoat or a slight top coat or perhaps a pair of rubbers. And so we try to keep it very simple, but at the same time quite factual. And in the pursuit of that, we also use what we think are rather graphic symbols of the weather. For instance, our diagonal line pattern, which would indicate here in this case R for rain, rain along the southeast portion of the United States. Now, our snow symbol we think is equally understandable, a system of polka dots indicating here in this case snow in the Midwest. We have some flexible black lines which we can arrange however the occasion warrants it, which would indicate the leading boundary of a mass of cold or warm air. In this case it's cold air, and the arrow clearly showing that it's advancing on our area. So we think that gives a rather clear idea. Meanwhile, we are connected by direct wire to the U.S. Weather Bureau for regular reports. We're also in constant touch with them on the telephone, and when the occasion demands it, we also go out and see them personally. So we try to keep that well covered. I think one of the noteworthy things about weather vane is a device known as the magic weather writer. We start off by giving the temperatures of a year ago or the high for the day, in this case, last year, in which case the high for our city was 66 degrees, and the low a year ago today was 47. Now let's take a look at the magic weather writer and the Louisville forecast, which reads, let's say this, Jim, sounds nice, fair skies and warmer temperatures with a high of around 75. Jim?
Thank you, Milton. Years ago, when local television had its birth, most production people agreed that stations just couldn't do local live variety shows. Well, we never got the word here at HAS. We not only tried it, we're still doing it. And we think we're doing a pretty good job at that. Our teenage variety show is called High Varieties. It features at least 12 individual performers and from 4 to 6 groups on each program. In addition, local bands and choruses add their talents to the show. Here's a composite picture.
Camera 1.
Ready.
2. 3.
Ready.
Videotape room.
Okay.
Stand by to roll a tape. Roll a tape. Stand by, announcer.
Tape's rolling.
Announcer ready.
From Studio H here at WHAS Television, welcome to High Variety.
Grow like a rosebud high on the vine. Don't thumb your nose, bud, take a tip from mine.
Kiss in the sunlight and a say to the world. But who can I turn to if you turn
High Varieties, our showcase for teenage talent, 5:30 Saturdays on HAS. Now, WHAS TV has a whole stable of local public affairs programs. But one is so outstanding that here in the midst of highly commercial shows, we'd like to take time to give you just a sample. It's a yearly effort called the WHAS Crusade for Children, conceived, managed, produced, and programmed by WHAS.
The band's playing and we're all saying it's so nice to have you back again this year. We sure need you and your money too. That's why we're crusading and parading so you pull us through. We hope your heart's swaying and we're all praying their hopes and dreams will have a happy end. So be a good neighbor, give them a helping hand, neighbor. This is the night they need a friend.
This is the 1964 WHAS Crusade for Children. To this stage have come television and recording stars from across the nation. Throughout Kentucky and southern Indiana, hundreds of volunteers have offered their services. But here are the real stars, the mentally and physically handicapped children of Kentucky and southern Indiana. Whether or not their lives can be made worthwhile depends on you. Tonight, you'll see such stars as Master of Ceremonies Jim Walton, Jay Willoughby of the Stephen Foster Story, Randy Atcher, Cactus and the Red River Ramblers, Phyllis Knight and Joanne Hale, Bobby Lewis and Sherry Sizemore, Judy Marshall and Janet Brooks, the 1964 Crusade Queen, the 1964 Crusade King and the Patsy Bloor Dancers, Linus the Lion-Hearted, new cartoon star from CBS, the folk song artist of Columbia Records, the Pilgrims, the show-stopping Madison Dance Trio, the fabulous, brilliant trumpet of Verve recording artist Don Goldie, singer, recording star, and frequent Tonight Show personality Jack Haskell, and the 1964 Crusade for Children chorus, the Motet Singers.
We hope your heart's playing, for we're all praying that their hopes and dreams will have a happy end. So
be a grand neighbor, open up your heart, neighbor. Maybe we can find a scheme, maybe fix a troubled dream, maybe you can buy a dream to mend. Now, on with the show.
That same excitement and drive continued through the night and far into the next day. Since 1954, the Crusade has raised almost $2.5 million and touched the lives of over 300,000 children. Now, obviously, the Crusade's whole purpose is to help handicapped children, but we can't help but believe that the know-how involved in its production, the management involved in the planning, the believability involved in the performing, and the response involved in the contributing has some significance in any judgment of WHAS television. In 1964, when the curtain fell after the singing of God Bless America, the people of this area had contributed almost $300,000 to help physically and mentally handicapped children of Kentucky and southern Indiana. We hope you like this brief view from HAS. It's a view that the people of this area seem to like. Now, there's a group of folks that we haven't introduced, our sales force. Now, they have the details on our personalities, our programs, the rates, the whole bit. And if you've enjoyed this view from HAS, perhaps you'll enjoy meeting them, too.